We're going to talk about safeties on the PHLY draft show coming up. Shawn, Syed of Sumer Sports, Fran Duffy, the All-City NFL draft expert. A lot of brain power. That's what you need at safety. Let's find out who in this draft has it for Vic Fangio coming up next. Welcome to the PHLY Eagles show on a Thursday afternoon. Bo Wulf and Fran Duffy in studio and joined by the man himself, Shawn Syed of Sumer Sports. Shawn, how you doing?
I'm doing great. You know, to see you do the cold open live, you know, I sure if it was pre-recorded or you would do it live. I was excited to see
How dare
you do that. And for the YouTube members, you know, I got my PHLY card. I'm a proud diehard member. I'm excited to be talking to you guys.
You're a proud diehard member, but you are not a happy draft watcher, which we will get into. And we are talking about safeties on the show today. A notoriously difficult position for the NFL to evaluate and project moving forward. But you are also a Vic Fangio scholar, Mr. Syed. And so I want to start the conversation. Let's talk big picture safety. When you put yourself in the mind of the Vic Fangio, what is most important to him at safety? What do you think he cares the most about when he's looking for a player at the position?
For Fangio and safeties, it's just so much that you have to do. We can't just cabin it off to one thing. You have to be able to communicate all of the calls, all of the rotations going through the defense. You have to be comfortable rotating into the box in the run game. You have to be able to play center field at times. You have to be comfortable dealing with those kind of deep outbreaking routes from the slot, the way that Reed Blankenship had that really nice interception against the Commanders. You have to be able to cover a crosser coming from the other side of the field. You have to understand the leverage of your teammates, the route concepts, how your unit is matching some of those routes. Then you're also going to have to be able to eat up a lot of field on kind of one half at a time. So that does not to mention, are you a liability in the goal line when teams are really trying to attack safety? So it's not just a question of, are you physically able to do it? There's also the question of, are you mentally able to do it? Are you able to do that and have the spatial awareness in real time to really be able to deal with all the ways that offenses want to attack you?
And so Fran, as we get to this, and by the way, this is a big day for Fran Duffy. In case you missed it, we had the PHLY draft show with Fran Duffy talking about his 7-round mock draft. Tonight at 6 o'clock, we've got the draft summit at JD McGillicuddy's in Manayunk, which you can also watch live, but we would much rather see you there in person. Yes. Fran and Cuz chopping it up. Unfortunately, I'm very much on baby watch, so I will not be able to make it tonight. There's a chance that during the middle of this episode, it's going to just be the two of you guys, but we will get to that. And I also have to say that we're grateful to TrueMark Financial for sponsoring this episode and all of our episodes heading into draft season. But my question about that sort of safety evaluation, Fran, is can you tell that on film? Or is that stuff where you need to do the homework to get to know these guys and talk to their coaches? Or can you really recognize on film, well, this guy does see it?
Yeah, a little bit of both. You know, I think that you can certainly see the guys that have a good feel for being able to play in zone coverage and, you know, overlap, and cover ground for other guys in the course of the middle of the field or in the deep part of the field. So you can see some of those tendencies when you're watching tape. Obviously, the thing is that you need to be able to watch a lot of tape of those guys to really feel good about it. You know, so there are some positions where, maybe you watch 2 or 3 games and you're like, all right, I feel like I've got a really good read on this player. There are times if I watch 2 games of a safety and I'm like, man, I just didn't see a lot of plays that were applicable to an NFL game. And so now I got to watch 2 more or maybe 3 more before I start to really feel like I've got a good sample. So it can be difficult, but you definitely can pick up on those things on film.
Okay. And so Shawn, in the lead up to this episode, we gave you a list of 8 safeties to watch. We're going to talk about all of those guys on this episode. But first of all, knowing that you hate this so much, I do want to get to that a little bit and the big picture psychoanalysis of it all. I mean, you are a man who appreciates the arts. You should be able to appreciate dreaming? Why is it that you limit your imagination so much and you can't enjoy watching young players who have things to learn and can grow?
You know, I think there's a lot to correct in that statement. First of all, I was given 9 players. I do want that on the record that it was not 8.
9?
If we only talk about 8, that's fine. Yeah, remember Fran insisted on adding in Dante Trader Jr. from Maryland.
I thought that we were not. I thought that you would peel that back. Okay. Well, then we'll get to him.
No, I mean, look, you know, I come on the show. You guys are nice enough to have me on. So, look, it's not that I hate doing it or I have a problem doing it. I'm very happy to do it, particularly for you guys. I think my issue is, like, I love watching, like, Moro Ujima kind of, like, show us just a little bit at a time. When you see that in college, like, that player being translated, a lot of times that's just a player it's a 7th rounder. It's an undrafted player. It's someone that's not going to have an impact in the league. And it's easier for me to, like, hang on to these specific examples. Like Keely Ringo had this example. I think it was like near Christmas last year or 2 years ago, where he's, like, playing cover 2 and, like, he kind of lets the receiver go, makes a nice tackle on the tight end in the flat. I just, like, hang on to those things so much. But then when you watch a college player, Fran, I think, put it really well, where, look, I watched 3 games of all these guys. I'm going to say things about these players that Fran just knows more about them. Like, he's going to know more about them because he's seen more of their film. And then when I get to, like, the, like, you know, 150th snap of someone on these, like, wide hashes doing something that I just don't see it as being translatable, you know, it's not my preferred thing. I just, like, I'm so obsessed with the games. Like, I need these NFL regular season games to be back. I need them so bad. And I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum. I know that Fran loves doing this. You know, everyone's got their own love language. You know, Bo's got his ad reads. Fran's got his, 7th rounder prospects who are going to be contributors in the league. But, you know, it's not my favorite thing. There's so much guesswork involved. I think I'm happy to be wrong on, like, all 9 of these guys. I can only say, you know, what I saw on film in the specific games that I watched, not fully knowing what they were asked to do. So I think it's so hard. And then at a certain point, it feels like, hey, you know, when we get to safety 6, safety 7, Fran's going to be able to point to, like, this is the exact difference I felt when I was watching on film. And, you know, for me, it may feel like, hey, all these guys have the same exact questions about how they can translate to the next level.
Do you feel like he's attacking your livelihood?
No, I just feel like, to me, I want him to share the enjoyment that I feel. You know, we were texting about this, and, you know, he made the point about, you know, finding the next Moro Ujima. Like, I get more excited. He gets more excited seeing that on film in week 16 or in the preseason. And I'm like, man, like, I actually sent him a clip from my previous stop when the Eagles drafted Moro Ujima, and, like, the excitement in my voice when I found out they were bringing in Ujima, I was like, oh man, I love this profile. I love the player. Being able to find the future Milton Williams, there's a lot of juice there. And I thought that he is someone that would enjoy that. But I knew, because Shawn and I spent, like, most of, like, what was it, Shawn, like 3 weeks together between Shrine Bowl,
just
Senior
traveling
Bowl, and
together.
Super Bowl, you know, seeing him every day.
First of all, we should make that a docu-series next offseason. I would watch the heck out of that.
I mean, I don't know that Shawn's going to do it, though. I mean, just based off of
I'd be happy to do it. I'm team content. I'm more than happy to do it. For me, it's like, well, why would I spend all the time doing it when, like, I mean, I have Fran Duffy's draft guide. I have all of his notes. Like, I can just do
honestly
that.
Fair.
I'll watch them on the preseason, use that as a prior, and then, you know, I'll be able to continue forward.
Well, look, it's asking Shawn to watch draft prospects. It's like asking you to watch season 2 of any TV show. You just don't want to do it.
It's not that I don't want it. It's just I'm not excited about it.
Right.
You're not watching The Last of Us, huh?
Well, we'll get to movie talk, Shawn. Don't you worry about that. All right. Well, let's talk about these safeties. I'm going to give you the list of the 8 or 9 safeties we asked you to watch, and these are the Fran's top 9 guys. And it is interesting. This position is one where there is a little bit less divisiveness, it feels like, in who are the top 8 guys. And it's funny from my perspective of just, like, looking at the profiles of these guys. I look at the safeties and I'm like, oh, finally.
It's a good group.
Finally, a position where there are guys who are young and productive and tested well. Like, this is the one position in this draft where I'm like, oh, okay, these guys all kind of seem like they could be good bets. We'll get to that discussion. But the 8 guys we're going to talk about, Malaki Starks from Georgia, Emmanwori from South Carolina, who were the 2 guys talked about in the first round. Then you've got Xavier Watts, Winston Jr., Bowman Jr., Jonas Sanker, Andrew Mukuba, Jaylen Reed, and then maybe Dante Trader Jr. And so of those guys, Shawn, I want you to go method here. I want you to put on your sweatpants. I want you to drink some Italian red wine, chew some glass, get really cranky, put on a Phillies game, become Vic Fangio. and then tell me who of those guys to you spoke the most. This would be a Vic Fangio type guy.
You know, this does feel like a list of players where you get through enough of their film and then he can say, hey, you know, Howie, you can draft someone else. You know, you can take someone up front. Even when we talk about some of those top guys, I think I would want to start though with Nicky Emmanwori, where I really want to have a discussion about Malaki Starks overall with Fran. Now, I think when you look at all these guys, do I think any of them are really like, you have to take this guy in the top 10? To me personally, not. I think when I look at Emmanwori, there is a lot of projection there outside of just, hey, this guy is an incredible athlete. I think you see sparks of it on film where it makes me feel like, hey, that is something that I would consider betting on. And still, there's guys that I would feel more comfortable about in zone coverage, maybe like Andrew Mukuba, who I may be just a touch higher than Fran on. But I think Emmanwori should be the place that we start.
All right, well, let's talk about Emmanwori, who is your safety too, but you were higher on in the pre-draft process. You were sort of ahead of his rise. He tested amazingly at the combine, has a bunch of starts under his belt. What do you like about Emmanwori?
Yeah, I mean, the physical traits absolutely stand out when you're watching him. I was not shocked at all to see him test the way that he did. When you watch him on film, the explosiveness, the height, weight, speed combination is apparent, like from the jump. This is a guy that can do a lot of different things defensively. He did spend a lot of time close to the line of scrimmage in that defense, but he'll line up over tight ends. He can certainly play on the deep part of the deep half of the field. We saw, the interceptions where he showed off range, showed off that finishing ability. I would say overall, in a defense like this, and Shawn, I'd be interested to get your take on this. To me, if it's differentiating between Malaki Starks and Nick Emmanwori, I think that the versatility of Emmanwori would get a little lost in a defense like Vic Fangio's, where it's basically, we know where the safeties are going to be any given play. Whereas when I see Emmanwori, I more like to see him go to a scheme where, all right, we can do this and this and this and this with him. And he shows the ability to do all of it. I'd rather him go to a system like that as opposed to one like the Eagles where, hey, he's going to be split safety. He's going to be either to the field or the boundary, and that's what he's going to do. But I do love the player.
That's a good point, Fran. I think that like the Derwin James comp, to me, that is like quite rich for Emmanwori when I'm looking at him. Like for Emmanwori's like versatility, because I know versatility and playing multiple positions and stuff is something that everyone on this show really loves. I think that siloing his role, I think that could actually help him at times, whether it's like, hey, you were going to be doing this over and over and over. Like you're obviously comfortable in your back pedal. There are times I think when he is coming or he's like attacking line that has to redirect and go back where sometimes it looks really good. There's an example where he just like totally falls over himself. So I think that, cutting that role down overall and not saying, hey, you have to play slot. Sometimes you have to play deep. We're going to put you just at linebacker sometimes. I would enjoy watching the player have a really specific role where it's like you've shown enough on your college film to be able to do this. And I mean, it's the PHLY Eagles podcast. I don't have to worry about these other teams. I'm just thinking about how he's going to translate to the Eagles.
Well, it's interesting. I think that the Zach Bond situation has put every Eagles fan into a place of mind where it's like, oh, well, just let Vic evaluate it and he'll get it right. What's to worry about? And I feel like maybe we have moved a little bit too far like that. Like if Vic was really that good at evaluating every player in the league and in college football, then like he would have done it forever. But I did want to look at Vic's history of drafting safeties. And it is a little bit interesting. And it's actually pretty good. So this is just starting with 2011 when he took back over as defensive coordinator for the Niners. So it's, 14 drafts or whatever it is. He has drafted 8 safeties over that time. And it started with a couple first-round picks. So Eric Reed in the first round in 2013, Jimmy Ward in the first round in 2014, and then nothing but day 3 guys after that. Adrian Amos in the 5th round in 2015 with the Bears. I mean, that's a fantastic pick. DeAndre Houston Carson in the 6th round. Deion Bush in the 4th round. Fine. Your boy Eddie Jackson in the 4th round, Fran, in 2017. You were very high on him. And then Caden Stearns in the 5th round with Denver in 2021. So I think that, I don't know what exactly picture that paints. I think one is, that's overperforming based on all of those draft slots. I mean, Eddie Jackson and Adrian Amos in particular are fantastic picks. But I also think it probably does lead some credence to, even if we want to address this position, maybe we don't need to do it in the 1st round, as well as he did with Eric Reed and Jimmy Ward.
That's the list. That's every safety he's drafted?
since 2011.
Got it. Yeah,
which is also not that many safeties.
No, it's not, but it's a good hit rate.
I mean, it's
a
an
really good,
unbelievable
hit rate. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of through lines as you were going there. Certainly some physically imposing players. You talk,
sure.
I think when you're looking at Reed, when you're looking at certainly at Eddie Jackson, this was a former corner that moved to the safety spot late in his college career. The same thing could be said about about Jimmy Ward. He was a college corner at Northern Illinois, different body type, but yeah, there's a wide variance there in terms of like usages and backgrounds. But all of them are good players.
It's a pretty good track record.
Yeah.
Sean's just like, he's just giving a clap. He's like, that's Uncle Vic, baby.
Well, there is part of it where it's like, hey, he's not making all those draft selections, right? I think some of his Niners days, or I don't actually remember all the exact dates and stuff. They could all be his draft picks. But Eddie Jackson, like that's one that I think when you think of the safety position, like when I go through all of the kind of older Fangio stuff, it's just so much fun watching him play. And then you kind of watch some of these guys in college and it's like, okay, can I translate that specifically? Is that an unfair kind of thing? But I'm glad you mentioned there should be value late in these rounds where, I mean, I trust Fran on a lot of these evaluations. If this guy's going to get drafted in the 5th round, but he really is a 3rd round value, I think there's players later on in this draft that they can absolutely step in day one, either really be able to push Sidney Brown or just totally be starters by week 1 of the season.
All right, let's have the Malaki Starks discussion. He's your safety 1. I sense, Shawn, that you hate the player. You think he should retire. You don't believe that he should even be playing football. We are, of course, talking about the Georgia safety, who is a 3-year starter, started as a true freshman, went freshman All-American, then first-team All-American the last 2 seasons, 6 interceptions, 6'1", 197, ran a 4.5 at the Combine. Not the most physically impressive player necessarily testing-wise, but what do you like about Malaki Starks, and how do you defend the charges levied by Mr. Syed?
So really quickly to get out ahead of this, my take on Shawn's take on Malaki Starks is that it is very similar to if someone tells you that a movie is good before you see the movie, and then you're like, that ruins every lens with which I'm going to view the movie.
Okay.
I think that the fact that Malaki Starks is billed as this really, really good player, Shawn went in and he wanted to see an all-pro safety from day one.
Oh, that's a great comp.
I think that's what has colored Shawn's picture of Malaki Starks. That's my guess, but we'll see. We'll let him rebuttal here in a sec. To me, when I look at Malaki Starks, I love the urgency that he plays with. He's just a very tough, physical, competitive football player. To me, I saw a good athlete on film. This was a guy that in their split safety scheme often got matched up with number 2. I don't think that that's going to be an ideal role for him in the NFL, but he was a player that never panicked. And that's something that typically when I'm looking for with safeties is when they're put in situations like that, they're not going to win every single one of those reps, but do you panic in those situations? He always showed outstanding ability to play the football and finish. I liked the instincts. I liked the physicality. A little bit worried about the size, under 200 pounds. That is a little bit worrisome moving forward in the NFL. To me, though, I mean, I saw a good athlete on film. The fact that he didn't quite test like a great athlete, that's a little bit worrisome, but all the GPS numbers and to me, I look at it this way. If you go into it liking Malaki Starks, going to the Combine, and he didn't test well, but you say, look at the GPS numbers. He was the fastest in all these drills. That's the way you're going to validate that performance, and that's how I'm going to stand with that. I'm going to look at that and say, like, yeah, he was faster in all the drills than everybody around him. Play speed versus time speed type of thing. But I'm a big fan of Malaki Starks and his game. I think he's a really, really good football player.
All right, Shawn, why are you a hater?
Look, I think that Malaki Starks probably is actually like on the range of outcomes. There are more times where Malaki Starks is a starter longer than Emmanwori is, just considering how Starks plays the position, considering some of Emmanwori's flaws. I do really agree with Fran in terms of like Starks has real play speed. Our tracking had him at like close to like a 4.40, the way that he is moving on the field. And Emmanwori has the opposite issue where it's like, oh, this guy is testing faster than he is playing. I think some of my concerns are like we talk about his versatility. Like if he is in the slot against a quicker body type, he, I think, is a liability. You have 2 examples against Ole Miss. You have a few against Alabama. You have a few against Texas where receivers are getting on you kind of vertically stuttering and then forcing an issue. And Starks' missed tackle rate is awesome. But then I flip on the Alabama film and see him struggling a little bit in space to make those tackles. So I feel like that might be an issue. And then there is, there's like a play against Texas where he is kind of a little bit late on a vertical to the sideline. And I think if you're going to struggle with that consistently, not that he did on his film, but I think that play really stuck out to me in my head where, when Fangio has playing cover 2 to a side, you got to get all the way to the outside receiver. If you can't do that, that's just going to be an issue. And look, there are so many good things about Starks. I do think his versatility position-wise is real. Like, he really can move around. He has like bad intentions going downhill. I love watching him attack the line of scrimmage on some of those short throws. I think he is a fluid athlete. I think he can be a matchup piece on some of those kind of bigger body types, maybe a tight end in the slot. And it's a chance that Starks is absolutely don't overthink this. This dude is a good football player. Why are you coming up with all these reasons? If he falls at 32, yeah, I think that's a reasonable spot for maybe the Eagles to take him. But I think when I think about him as top 10 prospect, I get a little bit wary. And I think Fran's analogy of this person just told you this is the best movie ever, which I notably do not do when I recommend movies to other people for the specific reason of I want to see it. I want to see it. And then maybe the 3 games that I turned on were just the exact games where you had a bunch of issues.
Well, I think it is an important discussion, because if we're talking about a safety and you're using a first round pick, presumably at 32, or maybe even a small move up, he better be really good. And if he's just, a low level starter who can get beat deep all the time, that's probably not the best use of resources, even if that's the 50th percentile outcome. Maybe that's not great. That goes to position value. But if you think that this guy can be a difference-making safety, and the floor, which we will talk about in a second, is a middle-of-the-road starting caliber safety, then it's probably a good bet based on, what's available to you at 32, right? You feel like at 32 it would be a home run pick.
Yeah, I think so. I would be over the moon if they took Malaki Starks at 32. Obviously not knowing who else is on the board, all that stuff. But for me, he's a top 15 player for me. So is Emmanwori. I love both players. So, if they ended up with either at 32, I would feel very, very good about that.
Okay. Well, it's a good reminder to think about other safeties who have been drafted in that area. We're going to talk about in a minute a super chat that asks about your draft evaluation of Lewis Cine and Sidney Brown. I'm going to give you some time to look that up and pull it up after the break. Coming up next. We've got more coming, all of that stuff on the other side of this break on the PHLY Eagles podcast. I said we were going to talk about flooring. Guess what that means? It's time to talk about our friends at Empire Today. At Empire Today, all they care about is floors. Your ceilings, no bother to them. Again, heads down all the time. That's all they do, is they're looking at floors. They are the experts, and they bring that expertise to you. You don't have to go there and become like Shawn, evaluating a safety, imagining what could be. No. You get to evaluate real guys right now. You get to see what the flooring would look like in your space with all of your surroundings. No imagination required. The good folks at Empire Today, they live and breathe flooring, and they will be with you every step of the way. It is a whole different ball game. With Empire Today, you get clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing, plus you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. So here's what you got to do. Schedule a free in-home estimate today, because some things are just better at home. PHLY listeners can receive, listen to this, a $350 discount when using promo code PHLY. You heard that right. A $350 discount with code PHLY. Restrictions apply. Visit empiretoday.com/PHLY for full details.
And we'll now hear from our friends at Bet365, because we know Bet365, they've got 90 million users worldwide. They stream over 780,000 events each year. You've got those early payout offers across the NBA, across NHL. You've got they pioneered the live in-game betting. And so, look, we've got playoff basketball starting. I know the Sixers not partaking, but we've got playoff basketball starting here this weekend, tomorrow night, on Friday night. Well, Saturday, Bo, are you aware of what Saturday is? We know about Tip-Off Tuesday, NBA Tip-Off Tuesday. But what about Slam Dunk Saturday?
Slam Dunk Saturday, baby.
We got Slam Dunk Saturday. We got Pacers Bucks on Saturday. It's another Bet365 Slam Dunk Saturday. You can place that qualifying parlay bet totaling $20 or more on those NBA games on Saturday. You can get up to $25 in bonus bets. Terms and conditions apply, because we know, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Make sure you go and take advantage of Slam Dunk Saturday.
All right, I teased the super chat from our man DR, who says, would be interested in hearing how Fran's pre-draft evaluations of Lewis Cine and Sidney Brown compared to these prospects, I'm sure you have access to all of these things,
course I
Mr.
do.
Duffman.
But I was getting my Bet365 read ready, so I don't have it ready. Give me
Not
one
just
sec.
yet. Okay. Sidney Brown, obviously. Hey, well, let's ask Shawn
Let's ask
about
Shawn.
Sidney Brown, actually.
Yeah.
Having evaluated him on the field as an NFL player, how do you feel about the prospect of Sidney Brown potentially being a starter next to Reed Blankenship?
You know, I do think he has a chance to be a productive starter in the league. I think there are fairly clear things he would need to clean up when it's, you're running downhill full speed. I think there was an example against the Packers, or I might be thinking of someone else, but like too many times where you're running in open space and you're either overrunning a guy or you have this, unique speed and explosiveness, but it's actually becoming a negative aspect for you. So I like him, maybe a little bit more in that kind of like a nickel who gets stuffed into the box at times kind of role. Of course, you have Cooper DeJean there. And then, of course, the lovely super chat asking about Lewis Cine. That's one I'm really interested to hear about from Fran, because I think Cine was, of course, like an incredible athlete. I think the way that they treated him at Georgia, though, was so different than Malaki Starks is being treated, where Cine was actually, his role, I think, was made simpler for him, where it's like, hey, see ball, hit ball, like you are going downfield, you are attacking, or your responsibilities are relatively simple. And I would call a very complex defense, whereas Starks has so much versatility in different ways. So, you compare Sidney Brown to these guys. I'm really interested to see what Fran had for those guys.
All right, who do we want first? We want Lewis Cine?
Let's do Cine first.
All right, Lewis Cine. So 2022 draft, he was my safety 4 that year.
Which is a little bit lower than consensus.
A little bit lower. I graded him as basically a solid starter. I'll go through really quickly the positives.
Who were 1, 2, 3?
So 1, 2, 3... So Kyle Hamilton was 1, Jalen Petrie was number 2, Daxton Hill was number 3. I graded him as a safety, now as a corner, and then Lewis Cine.
Petrie too is a good hit for you.
That's great. And having even seen at 4, I think would have been relatively unpopular that year. I'm sure a lot of people had him at 2 at worst.
I loved Petrie. Yeah, I was a big Petrie guy. So, well, I mean, come on, we don't have to.
I was like, we got the Cooper DeJean pat on the back yesterday.
Yeah, it's too
see,
much.
like I said, why would I have to evaluate these prospects if Fran's gonna have a hit rate like Vic Fangio picking safeties?
All right, well, let's go through Lewis Cine. So my final write-up on him was 2-year starter for the Bulldogs in their split safety scheme, where he lined up to the boundary and was an outstanding top-down defender, great run defender in all areas, extremely sound tackler. He was just an average athlete, which I thought capped his ceiling. But even still, he has shown a bigger knack, or I wish he had shown a bigger knack for big plays in college. I would have been willing to forgive that because he's not really a liability in coverage. Showed the ability to read routes from depth as a pattern match player. His ceiling as a good starter, but I felt better about him as just a really good average starter just because of the lack of impact plays over the course of his career. High character kid, was really well regarded from that way. Obviously, the injury had a big part of it. He tested really. He ran 4.34, which is what got him into the first round. I didn't think he played to that. That was kind of the what I was worried about with him. So that was Lewis Cine. Now, when I go to Sidney Brown, Sidney was my safety 12 in the 2023 draft. I had a backup grade on him, a high backup grade, but I had a backup grade, under 5'10", 211 pounds. My final write-up there, 5-year starter in the secondary for the Illini, has played both nickel and safety and does play all over the formation. Don't view him as an every down impact player, but he can fit in as a valuable role player and a key cog in primarily a zone-heavy system. I do wish that he was a better run defender, but it's not for a lack of 1-2. Most of his issues can be corrected in that area. I thought he had a floor as a 4th safety, had the potential to be an impact player on special teams. The tackling was a big concern for me. I thought he would get really grabby in man-to-man coverage, going back and just looking at the notes really quickly. But yeah, I thought that he had potential as a special teams guy.
Correctly, I feel.
Oh, well, we'll see. I mean, year 1 showed some good flashes.
I'm Vic Fangio. I'm not putting a ceiling on anybody.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, the Eagles. I don't believe that the Eagles are willing to go into next year with Sidney Brown and nobody else.
I don't think you could. Yeah.
Yeah,
I agree.
And so I do think that this is a Mekhi Becton situation where if they don't come out of the draft with the safety in the first 4-5 rounds, then they will probably sign somebody off the street quickly.
Yeah, I think that's fair to assume. Yeah, I think that if you were to go in just with Sidney, yeah, I think you would be a little bit worried about that.
Yeah. All right, let's move down the list now. Fran's safety 3, Jonas Sanker from Virginia, 22 years old, 6'1.5", 206, ran a 4.48. Very impressive jumps. I did not watch like tape on him, but I was just zooming through the YouTube. He moves. I mean, he looks like an NFL player. Just the size, the quickness with which he moves. What did you see from Jonas Sanker, Shawn?
He is really willing to step into the box. He can roll down in cover 3. He is comfortable as a blitzer. You see him used like that a few times. I think he can close in the pass game and then recover back kind of downfield where you come up. You are like, hey, I need to turn back in a hurry. So I think you really like to see that, particularly when you consider having to do that as an Eagle safety.
Yeah, I actually, now that I had the Cine report up, I had almost the same exact grade on Lewis Cine that I have on Jonas Sanker.
Okay.
So I do think that he can be a solid starter in the middle of the field. I just think, honestly, like looking at my notes, I don't have any red. Like I thought he was just rock solid across the board. I thought he was a fluid, smooth athlete, excellent game time speed. I'm interested, Shawn, if you guys had numbers there that kind of backed that up. But I just thought he played fast, around the ball a ton, and found ways to impact the game. So TFLs, forced fumbles, hands on the football and coverage. I thought he showed the ability to jump routes from depth. It was a cover 4 base scheme, and he would get matched up on the number 2 receiver, which is what we see so often in college is the safety will get matched up against a slot receiver, and we don't see that as often in the NFL. Those guys get where you're on an island, man. In some schemes, it happens more often than others. And again, it's about not winning every single one of those matchups, but like, do you compete and do you panic? Do you not panic down the field? And I just thought that there was a lot of poise to the way that Sanker played.
For Sanker, I would be curious, to see his play recognition maybe just get a touch quicker. I think particularly on vertical routes, if you're recognizing it quicker, I think it'll also put him in a bit better of a position. I would like to see his, just overall vision and zone coverage. I think when he has to drop off routes, I think that is something that he can really take to the next level. There was an example against Louisville where, I think he doesn't see a craft block where it felt like, just your overall vision, your overall field awareness. I think increasing that, it would be something that's really positive for him.
I love when you drop in the specific, there's a play against whoever, when he did this or that. I mean, you're showing you did the homework. It's very good.
I mean, I did the work. And the thing is, I am really sure to say that because I'm, again, very confident. Fran has seen way more snaps of these guys. I can only tell you what I saw from this player on the film that I watched with my knowledge of what I think that their job is. So, is Sanker, to me, Sanker felt more like, hey, he is good at a lot of things, maybe not elite at anything. So actually, I think Fran, saying if his kind of an equivalent evaluation of what his evaluation in terms of grade for Cine was, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do I think he's going to change your defense overnight? No, but do I think he can be a starter where, he can be an every down player? I think he has it in him.
Because you're such a scheme lord, Shawn. You've got schemes in your social media handles. When you're watching these guys, do you find yourself yelling about defensive schemes? Does that make the evaluation more difficult at this position when you don't necessarily know what they're being asked to do?
See, you do have to shut it off a little bit where, I've watched a lot of Ole Miss games because I like seeing them because you are, if Lane Kiffin sees that you're a liability in coverage, they're just going to run double moves at you over and over. So there's a little bit of signal in that. I feel pretty comfortable overall. I think projecting okay, this is what this person's role probably was. Absolutely times where I was wrong. I think particularly with safeties, it's tough where they have to protect against the RPO in such a different way that the NFL guys have to. So a lot of safeties, they're going to look like they're late to the party, but they have to hang back because a quarterback will throw a post after 5 seconds of a whole entire block. So to me, if anything, it's more the hash marks, I think, are just what are we doing here? It really is a different sport. Again, I totally understand the appeal of college football. I understand there is traditions and really beautiful aspects of it that we will never have at the NFL level. And I'm just not here to yuck anyone's yum. I was asked to do a job, and I feel like I did it to the best of my abilities. With, I would argue, a decent attitude.
Are there schemes that you prefer to, or make it difficult for you to evaluate a guy?
So for what Shawn said, that's why safety's hard because most teams, most safeties, you have to deal with all these things. If you don't, then you're going to get just RPO'd to death in college football, and so that's why it can for some safeties in terms of their usage. If they're playing, X amount of yardage off the ball every single play, and there's a lot of stuff happening in front of them, or the opposite, where it's just there's just it's tough to always be able to navigate what a guy was asked to do in college versus what he will be asked to do moving forward into the NFL. I know we've got a question in the chat as well. They're not a super chat, but about Malaki Moore, the safety from Alabama. And it's this guy's an All-American. He's been a 5-year starter for Nick Saban. It's but you have to take what the guy was asked to do in college, and you still have to project that forward. The traits matter. The usage matters. All of that comes into play.
All right, let's move our way down the list. Next up is your safety for Xavier Watts, and this is the one slightly older player in this sample. Probably a little bit more of a polished product than some of these other players, but he will be 24 in November, a 2.5-year starter at Notre Dame, two-time All-American over the past 2 years, 5'11 and a half, 204. Ran a 4.58 at his pro day, which is not necessarily great, but more of a playmaker. 13 interceptions over the past 2 seasons.
Yeah, to me, his awareness and zone coverage is so good. Some of the best in this class. His finishing ability, he takes great angles to the ball and then can climb the ladder and finish as well as anybody. To me, he is a pure post safety and pure deep safety in that matter, because I do think he could play in a too high system as well and be really good in that kind of a situation. But to me, not a guy that is going to like line up in the box consistently. The run game stuff, a lot of his missed tackles, some teams teach it where it's, you are going to run through, just accelerate through the tackle, accelerate through the ball carrier. Don't break down in the hole and try and match them that way. In Notre Dame, they were teaching guys, or at least it seems like they were teaching Watts that, hey, break down in the hole, come to balance and finish. And that's where his misses would come, because he's a little bit limited athletically. That, to me, that the knock on this kid is that he's not a top shelf athlete. You mentioned the 4.58 in the 40-yard dash. There are times where he looks a little bit stiff, a little bit clunky, but to me, not a detriment. I think if he's going to be a top-down safety, his instincts, his angles to the ball, his finishing ability are going to set him apart. I think he's a great post safety.
What did you see, Shawn?
I like that, Watts really wants to hit you. I think he is a little bit better downhill. He can be really physical with runners, with receivers. He can cover that ground in a hurry, which is something that I really like. I do think he has positive ball skills. I believe he started out at receiver, so I think he looks good for a player that, is not at his peak at that position, because he's going to have more years there. I think, being a middle of the field type safety like that narrows your kind of overall role, where, as in the Eagles defense, you obviously have to do so much more of that, or so many more things than that. I also think, as a middle of the field player, he's not, to me at least, like an eraser of space where he's covering, both sidelines so well. I'm not sure if he has the desirable explosiveness in coverage. I think I need to see him survive a little bit better on some of those kind of vertical, we're going to attack you type routes. I'm not sure how comfortable you'd be with him, in matchups in coverage over and over. And I'm not sure if he has, the kind of chase speed that you need in the NFL, where there was a rep against, I think it was against Penn State, and there was one, I believe, against Ohio State, where it's like, hey, like if you're not fast enough to the sideline, these guys are, going to take the edge and just be able to run by you.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't sound great to me.
Yeah.
Talking about, let's say, in at 64.
I love it because I think Fran and I are like, we are seeing the same things. Like we really, really are. And Fran has the ability to be like so positive about it. And then it's like, well, there's also all these other things that are showing up.
24 as a rookie, if he's not explosive enough to really cover the middle of the field, and he's not physical enough to really come down into the box.
But that's why I think it's okay for the Eagles and for most defense in the NFL, because not a lot of teams are single high safeties anymore. Yeah. I think that he covers enough ground to be a split safety in the NFL. I think the speed is not a detriment to that.
Does the expectation, and I don't know how Keely Ringo factors into this, but let's say you assume you're going to have 2 very good corners on the outside. Does that change what you care about at safety? Or can you not really bank on that?
Honestly, it'd be interesting to hear Shawn's take on that.
Yeah, I think, today's problems are not tomorrow's problems. Yeah. So I hesitate a little bit to be draft so specifically for like, oh, well, this is what our roster looks like this year. Because, I mean, Keely Ringo could become a star. It could be a new guy. It could be that they get a first-round pick next year. That's a surprise player. So I would, I guess, hesitate to just be like so specific. I think, though, I like this point where it's like, okay, if you're not a middle of the field eraser, can you do, like, we have 2 high safeties, like you're just covering that kind of inside quarter of your defense. You still have to be able to cover like when someone's attacking you 15 yards and breaking to the outside. And I think for Watts, I'm probably a little bit more comfortable, if he's hanging out in the box, and I think maybe than some of the film that Fran saw. But, on that specific kind of route concept, like I would be a little bit more concerned. So I think it is positive for you in that, hey, you don't have to cover as much ground. You still have to be able to see the field really well. And you're going to be in more of a phone booth. So you have to be able to also break on those routes.
All right, let's go to the last guy who's probably in second round consideration. That is Winston Jr. from Penn State, who is your safety 5. Fran, coming off a knee injury that limited him to only 2 games as a true junior, but he was also a starter as a true sophomore. He's only going to be 22 in December, so he's 21 now, 6'1.5", 215. came back from that injury to run a 4.51 at his pro day. This is one where just profile-wise, you could hear Howie Roseman saying, well, if this guy played a full healthy season, he would have been a first-round pick. Or, if he went back, he would have been a first-round pick. We feel like we got good value in the second round. What do you see from Kevin Winston Jr.?
Yeah, I mean, he's the height weight is outstanding. 6'1" and change, 213 pounds, got great length. The 4.51, 6 months off the ACL is impressive, especially considering the fact that I didn't think he was a low 4.5 guy on film. And Shawn, I'd be interested to get your take there. I was a little bit worried about the speed and the juice on tape. But again, not enough to knock him down the board for me. It's not like I put him up after the pro day. So to me, when I look at Kevin Winston, all the other reasons about his game, all the other things, all the other facets, I love. I love the toughness. I love the physicality. I thought the instincts were there. I would say he's probably dominant run game wise, top down. He's good navigating through traffic. The coverage stuff I thought was good, and it was not a detriment, but not as good as some of these other guys. Really strong on contact, outstanding production on a per snap basis. The big hang up for me, we know he's a young player. He hasn't played 700 snaps yet defensively. It just has not played a ton of ball. And at that position, especially in a defense like the Eagles, I don't know that I would say, oh yeah, let's roll with him right now, day one. That said, the one recurring theme in this class is all of these safeties that we've talked about. Every character review is A+. Malaki Starks, people rave about. Emmanwori, people rave about. Winston, I've been hearing about Winston since his freshman year, showed up and was an NFL player from day one. Xavier Watts, 2-time team captain. Billy Bowman, excellent football character. I go down the list. All of these guys are A++. So I say all that to say with when it comes to Winston, while he doesn't have a ton of experience, the fact that he is an A+ character, I think that really kind of vaults him up. It gives me a little bit more confidence that he could be more ready than most guys with that low level of experience.
All right, let's hear the negative version.
Well, you are making a little bit of a projection, right? I mean, he's coming off that injury.
Yes.
Of course, you get 2 games early in the season. I agree that he can deliver a lot of force. Another bad intentions player in the middle of the field, has the burst to be able to close there, can finish tackles, has the tools needed to succeed at that position. Fran, you mentioned just concerns about the juice overall. For me, it felt like there were times where he's playing flat-footed pretty often, and then I think maybe got him into trouble. That can absolutely be the way that he's being taught. It could also just be hey, we're teaching you to do something else, but you keep doing this over and over. It feels like he maybe not as smooth as you would want, just in terms of opening up those hips, in terms of redirection, really able to get a spot. I'm not sure if he's supernatural in zone coverage. I think he can improve just dealing with kind of spatial issues overall. So obviously I don't have medical knowledge on him. I hope that he's able to get back to full health, get back to full speed. I think if he's a 3rd, 4th rounder, I think that's a dart throw that you'd be happy to take. I just feel like he probably will test faster than, or did test faster than he's playing. And I think that I would feel a little bit more comfortable if you go to a place like Philadelphia, where Christian Parker's still there as the DB's coach, lucky to have him back for another year, where I think that they can clean up some of those eye violations you see against a West Virginia on film, where he can get that cleaned up, and then he's able to play a little bit faster because he's seeing the game better as well.
Okay. I could be sold, I guess.
I'd be excited about him in the 3rd round.
In the 3rd round.
Yeah, in the 3rd.
Not at 64.
Well, no, I mean, look, at 64, we're basically talking third. I think I think you could very much sell to me that profile at 64.
Okay. Yeah. Meanwhile, Shawn would, throw up his hands and say,
What's going on?
What's going on?
Yeah, I need to go watch a movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's a 50% hit rate, right? You have to be comfortable being wrong all the time. With I mean, obviously not if you're Fran. I've only heard over the last 2 days absolute mashes, and I'm excited for them to be more right than wrong again this season.
All right, we got more coming up. We're going to talk about Billy Bowman, Andrew Mukuba, and Jaylen Reed, and Dante Trader Jr. since Shawn did the work on him. Coming up next on the PHLY Eagles podcast. All right. Now, I hope that you all make it out to the draft summit tonight at PJ McGillicuddy's. And if you do, I hope you're sucking back a nice Pabst Light, baby, because Pabst Light is a new light modern beer from our friends at Pabst Brewing Company. It is 96 calories, just 3.5 grams of carbs, and full of crisp and refreshing flavor. At Pabst Light, they're using high-quality ingredients so you can get that high-quality beer at a smart, approachable price. And it retains the fun and independent spirit Pabst is known for. It's just light. Beautiful. Learn more about Pabst Light at pabstlight.com. Please drink responsibly. Must be 21 or older. Pabst Light, suck 'em back, baby!
Let's now hear from our friends at Ashley Furniture, because we know the low prices are blooming. It is springtime. The spring is turning into savings at Ashley. Save up to 50% off living rooms, bedrooms, and dining rooms, and have it all delivered for free. Plus, get the long-term no-interest financing, save on top brand mattresses, and get free delivery, setup, and removal. But don't wait. Spring into savings now at Ashley, South Jersey, and in Philadelphia. I know personally, I've been, we're constantly trying to get new stuff update. We moved into the house a couple years ago, and it's what's the old adage? Like one room a year.
Yep.
Meg moves at a faster pace than that. It's more like 2 rooms a year. So we're constantly, all right, we got to get out. We got to get some new furniture. Ashley is always our first stop. You go there, and it's always the last stop. You go in there, they handle everything, and you get everything I just laid out. You get the free delivery. They haul away the old furniture. It does not get better than that. Financing with approved credit. Minimum purchase required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details. Hurry to Ashley. Visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information.
JD McGillicuddy's. JD. I think I said PJ.
Yeah, it's
JD McGillicuddy's. I mean, maybe I drank too many Pabst Lights.
Just draft McGillicuddy's.
Jordan Davis. I had
Jordan
it.
Davis.
And I lost it. All right. We're going to get you to stump for Andrew Mukuba in a second, Shawn. But let's start with Billy Bowman, who is your safety 6, Fran. And listen, I was poo-pooing this guy because he's so tiny. And I do love Death of a Safety, Billy Bowman. I am not a dime a dozen. I am Billy Bowman. But I'll tell you what, when I was just watching this guy, it's fun to watch.
Yes.
And you're also like, oh, good for that little guy. Good for him knocking people around. That's so fun. Sell me on Billy Bowman. If you don't know, he's 5'10", max, 192, ran a 4.43. But yeah, he's got bad intentions. He plays with the guy like trying to overcome for his littleness.
He was 198 at the Senior Bowl, and then 198 at the Pro Day. So he lost 6 pounds to test at the combine and put the weight back on.
Got it.
So
okay.
We're getting up there. We're getting close to 2 bills. But I have Billy Bowman and Andrew Mukuba in the same bucket, same tier.
Okay.
I just have a slightly better grade on Bowman. I would say that I would probably, if I was like forced to it, I would say that Mukuba I'd probably draft ahead of him.
Okay.
But I think that Bowman is just a better player right now in my mind. I like the versatility, good athlete, good speed.
He's fun, man.
He's a good player, really instinctive. I thought the run game stuff was a little bit worse off than the pass game stuff, but personally, just a really good football player. Probably more like low-end starter, like sub-package role type of player. If he's your third safety, if you play in big nickel kind of deal. But I like Billy Bowman a lot.
I do think that one of my prejudices at safety for guys coming out, I think there is signal in how many years you've been a starter.
Yeah.
Because at a position where it is hard to know if they're doing what they're asked to do, I think it matters if the coaches decide that this guy is reliable. What did you see in Billy Bowman? Bowman was a 4-year starter, essentially. Go ahead, Shawn.
Yeah, Bowman, absolutely a high effort player, not afraid of contact. I like that, Oklahoma will have plays where they have 3 safeties on the field. They're disguising things in all different types of ways. Yeah. You see Bowman really able to kind of eject to a new spot pretty quick. And, he ran, I think it was 4.42 for our like weight adjusted or kind of size adjusted athleticism score. He was in the 79th percentile. I think if you're that size, unfortunately, you have to be like a really, really kind of 95th percentile type athlete. There are times where like he does look like a blur. Like there was one example, it was like an LSU fumble and someone else is picking up and it's like, wow, that guy is really moving fast. And he's not even the player that's making the play there. I think if I remember correctly, I know Fran, I'm sure Fran will have this. Like his arm length was really, really short. Yes. And for me, like the measurements, obviously they're important, but then you see it sometimes where he's trying to make a tackle and it feels like, hey, having shorter arms is putting him into a little bit of an issue. Or there are times where I think it was against LSU where you're trying to get a PBU, but you just cannot, get around the receiver because your arms are that length. I'd like him to be, a little bit faster out of his breaks. I think that his athletic thresholds may just knock him off, some people's boards. But I agree. He was a fun watch for sure.
Yeah, of the 40 elite safeties over the past decade plus, the shortest arms of any of those guys is Quandre Diggs at 29 and 5/8 inches. And Billy Bowman's at 28 and a half. So he's
29 and an eighth with the pro day.
Okay. I know the combine really threw everything off.
I know, climbed up.
But even still, getting the pro day bump, he's still shorter than the shortest.
Bowman. So it's funny you brought up Diggs. Diggs was my comp.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Diggs was my comp because I had to dig through and find, all right, who's the small safety?
Diggs is 5'9",
yeah. And honestly, looking at the athletic profile, to Sean's point, and Diggs, he came out as a corner. It was honestly. Right. This is one of the names I have written down for Jade Barron as well. Actually, I talked with somebody else last night who thinks that Barron might be in this group.
Might be a safety.
Might be a safety down the road. But
Antoine Winfield's short.
Yep, that's another one. And he was another guy who came out and came in as a corner. With Quandre Diggs, he ran 4.56. Billy Bowman ran 4.42. Billy Bowman had a better 10-yard shuttle. He had a better vertical jump. He had a better broad jump. So,
but Quandre Diggs was a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, and I think Bowman is probably a day 3 pick. He's probably a 4th-round pick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I would be surprised if Bowman went 3rd round.
Okay.
I think that at that size,
if the Eagles drafted Billy Bowman, do you think he would start over Sidney Brown?
I think he's a better player than Sidney Brown. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about Andrew Mukuba from Texas by way of Clemson. 5'11 and a quarter, 186, which is a little bit slight. He's also got small arms and small hands relative to consensus. But it's interesting. I said to Fran beforehand that just a quick watch on Andrew Mukuba, the player he reminded me of was Sidney Brown, because it seemed to me like he is moving at his top speed. He's just picking a direction and going and hoping that it's the right place to be. But what did you see from Mukuba?
I really like his feel in zone coverage. I think he sees the game really well. And to me, that's my bias. Like, I really like when players are able to do that. That's certainly what, Vic Fangio is going to ask you to do in his defense. I think his comfort in coverage lets him play faster than he actually is. Yep. He had a really nice interception against Georgia where he really was able to kind of put that on display. I think he really wants to hit you. He's going to throw his body at a ball carrier, even if it doesn't work every single time. He's being asked to do a bunch. He's being asked to move around a bunch. I think you can see him as kind of an active dropper in zone coverage, where Cooper DeJean, I think it was against the Ravens, had that really nice example where, he's dropping in space, he's pointing to someone else, he's moving around. He's not just going to a space and doing nothing. Like, you're not covering the grass. Like, you're trying to cover a player. So I think seeing him do that multiple times, where I think a bunch of these other prospects maybe didn't show that in the same way. And it certainly can be the way that they're taught, the way that, they're playing their scheme overall. So I think some of those things, not saying that, Mukuba should be the top safety, he should be a 1st-round draft pick, but I think there were some things there that made me feel a little bit more comfortable about his translation to the next level.
Yeah, honestly, everything you guys just said is I'm right on par with. I love his physicality. He runs the alley with a fury. I've been watching this kid for a few years because he first stood out to me when he was at Clemson. He's another 4-year starter. He started 43 games in his career. And I remember his freshman year, I was watching who knows who it was at that point on the Clemson defense. And I was like, man, look at this safety flying around. It kind of leveled off. He didn't take that next step. So things got a little bit stale there at Clemson. So then he transfers, goes to Texas, and he started popping this year defensively for one of the better defenses in college football. And I think when you're looking at Mukuba, everything that Shawn just said from the zone coverage standpoint, this is directly from my notes, which, by the way, if you're a diehard, you have access to all these notes. But zone instincts are pretty strong. As a middle hook player, he read the quarterback's eyes and beat the throw to the spot to impact the catch point. As a split safety, the same traits showed up. I talk about not seeing panic down the field. Shawn highlighted the one play. There was another one, Ohio State, early on in that playoff game, where they took Jeremiah Smith, the young stud wide receiver, the true freshman, deep post, one-on-one against Mukuba. No panic, makes the play on the football, PBU down the field. No penalties the last 2 years from Mukuba. He is a little reckless coming downhill, to your point, where he's very decisive. He sees it and he goes. He's just a little out of control at times. There is some Sidney Brown element there, and that's talking with a scout the other day, about a week or so ago. He made the point where, where there was there are plenty of highlights where he comes down and he just lays the wood on a guy, but there are also plenty of opportunities too where he just misses that player just from being out of control at times. So there's a little bit of a double-edged sword with that aggressiveness, but I do like the player.
So Shawn, what do you think? Because that to me sounds like Vic wouldn't like that, right? He wants reliability in the run game, but he probably would be intrigued by the pass game stuff that you're talking about, the zone instincts. What do you think he would care about more, the pass game stuff or the run game stuff?
Yeah, I'm sure he would answer both and say they're both very important. I do think, though, like there are some things that I think can be taught, some things that maybe can't be taught. A little bit, feel in zone coverage. I do think you can teach that. There is a little bit of innateness or just like how this person is recognizing it that I feel like that is really important. With Mukuba, I do think, one of his issues when he is coming downhill, or it feels like a little bit a size issue where on contact, he's not able to deliver like physically that full kind of punch. But I would lean, a little bit more towards Fangio wants to see someone that has that zone instincts. At the same time, I think you can't always teach size, and like you can teach tackling, but like, to really, really improve someone's ability to create force on contact, maybe you're not always able to do that. So I lean pass, like that is more important, but I think that maybe you can teach that just a touch more than some of the run game stuff. But at the same time, for the Eagles now, they're in an interesting spot where, Cooper DeJean is the guy that is like kind of tucked into the box so often. Yeah. It really relieves a lot of stress from those safeties, as opposed to, on his defenses in the past, you have to see that safety rolling down in the box. And we saw this with Blankenship a ton, of course, with Shawn Gardner-Johnson as well, where that guy's making the tackle. But having DeJean be so flexible in that spot lets you, I think, keep those safeties where they're like the third layer of the defense, really, as opposed to having to be at that second level.
I think that's a good framing. All right, let's do one more guy before overtime. And this is the one player on this list aside from Malaki Starks, who we know that the Eagles have brought in for a pre-draft visit, and that is Jaylen Reed from Penn State, who is 22 years old. He is 5'11 and a half, 211, two-year starter at Penn State, where he had 5 interceptions over the past 2 years, ran a 4.49, and just did okay with his vertical jump. What do you see from Jaylen Reed? He is your safety 8.
Yeah, he's the first of this group where I'm like, this is a definite backup for me.
Okay.
I like the way he plays, very competitive, very aggressive. I didn't see like a bad athlete, but I didn't see a plus athlete either. So I thought there were some physical limitations, a little bit out of control as a tackler. Some of the same things we've talked about, with Mukuba, with Sidney Brown, like those kind of things show up where he's very aggressive coming downhill, but will just come in a little bit too hot at times. His technique can definitely improve. He had his share of misses as a tackler. In that scheme, he was put in some stressful spots where, sometimes I thought that he would get routed up and would panic and get a little bit grabby. Other times I thought he played it well. So I didn't think he was a bad player. I just didn't think he was like a great player either. I liked him, but more as like a high-end backup first guy off the bench as opposed to a 3-down presence.
I imagine you see that similarly, Shawn.
Yeah, I'm worried about his play speed. I think there are a bunch of times where you're getting caught flat-footed, you're getting caught out of position. I think you can throw eye candy at him, really get him to bite. I don't think he looks exactly natural in zone coverage, not necessarily natural in man coverage. In some of those clips against Notre Dame, maybe not the quickest closer on out-breaking routes as well. I do think, you use him as a blitzer every once in a while. He wants to get physical. He can really hit. He's comfortable around the line of scrimmage. I think he can fit in the run game, but I think Fran's notion of like, this guy is a backup guy, certainly to start. I think that is a good thing to have. And then Fran, I don't know, like there were a bunch of games later on in the season where there's like another safety on Penn State. I think his last name is Wheatley, where I'm like, this guy Wheatley is moving like 7 times faster than Reed. So it was like distracting me, when I'm just trying to watch one prospect at a time here.
See, now this is what it's all about, Shawn. Now you go up, you look up Wheatley, and you're like, oh man, he's a sophomore. This is the sophomore. Now I'm early on him next year. I want to do a full study of Wheatley this summer. So now it's July, and you're watching him, you're like, oh man, I can't wait to turn on the Wheatley film on October 13th.
And then all of a sudden somebody else is going to catch your eye on the other team. Who's this guy juking him up? Oh, I gotta look at this guy.
The Penn State defense.
The blocks are building.
Oh, this is fantastic. So
it's good because you could hear the disappointment in your voice early when you were going through your Jaylen Reed thoughts, and now all of a sudden there's a little other thing going on.
I wrote down Damar Hamlin when I was watching Jaylen Reed. I think that. Again, I think he's a backup. He was the big nickel, like in sub. Like that's not going to be his role. That's part of the problem with watching safeties is that it's either they're so far away from the action that you have to watch a lot, or it's just like, man, he's not going to be this in the NFL, so none of this applies, right? And so it's tough that way.
But that's important framing, I think, because it's good to say that I asked you about Mukuba, so. Starks, Emmanwori, Sanker, Watts, Winston Jr., Bowman, Mukuba. That's 7 guys.
Yep.
Anyone beyond that, you would expect that they're not going to overtake Sidney Brown as a rookie.
I think so. I think that Jaylen Reed, if you take him in the 4th round, I would anticipate like he's going to. And the Eagles don't draft people on day 3 for the most part unless they think they have starting upside.
Right.
So I would say that all right, if they take Jaylen Reed in the 4th round. they see starting upside there
Eventually.
and then it's all right. Like I would imagine those guys are going to battle it out. I had Reed with a higher grade than Brown coming out, but obviously, Brown's got a little bit of a head start on him, and I would say that those guys would try to compete for the spot.
Gotcha. All right, we actually have a lot more to come in this episode. We've got some more super chats. We've got Dante Trader Jr. to talk about. I want to ask Fran if there are any day 3 guys who he thinks do have starting upside. There's one guy I kind of like who I want to ask you about.
Oh.
We got to talk about some movie stuff with Shawn and maybe a little bit of inter-podcast bitterness that we need to discuss, but we'll get to all of that in overtime. All right, Shawn, I don't want your Dante Trader Jr. work to have gone to waste. So give us everything you feel inside your bones about Dante Trader Jr., the safety from Maryland.
I think he's willing to fit in the box. I think, decent closing on some routes, decent in and out of his break, in his pedal. I think you see him kind of comfortable getting his nose dirty. You can see him, redirecting downhill and bursting a little bit, but certainly a player that can be caught on those eye violations where we're sending, whatever, posting a wheel at you. We're sending, a play fake kind of in your general direction, kind of jet motion where you're going to get caught flat footed. We're going to run someone behind you. I'm not sure if he has that deep vertical speed needed to be really successful at the position. So I'd like to see his, awareness just, continue to improve. I think you see him kind of overrunning receivers a little bit too often. I think with better play diagnosis, with better spatial awareness, you would maybe see a little bit less of that.
22 years old, a 3-year starter at Maryland, 5'11", 200, did run a 4.65 at the Maryland Pro Day, which is not ideal. 5 interceptions over the course of his career, but he's your safety 9.
Yeah, and he's a depth piece. I think that he's a fine backup. And honestly, like going through my notes now, just kind of getting ready for this, like everything was average, like average tackler, average ball production. I didn't think he didn't move the needle for me as a blitzer. All the zone stuff in the middle of the field was fine. I thought he was better than the rest of the guys in that secondary. There was another safety in that group, Glendon Miller, who went to the Shrine Bowl. I thought he was probably the worst player at the Shrine Bowl, to be honest. And so when you're comparing Trader to him in that secondary, like Trader's definitely the guy. But overall, I just thought he was a solid player, interchangeable safety, best in a split safety scheme, because I didn't think that if you're going to delineate between free and strong, not athletic enough to play in the post, not good enough close to the line of scrimmage to be that designated strong safety. I thought that he could match up with tight ends at times, but I didn't think you want to make a living doing that with him. So, kind of a specified role, as a kind of do everything backup.
Okay. So big picture, Shawn, having gone through this exercise, as painful as it was for you to do, how did it make you feel about the prospect of the Eagles using a first, second, or third round pick on one of these players?
Maybe not a first and a second. It did make me feel like there are a bunch of players in this class that they can come in, they can, maybe be real day one starters at safety, where I agree with, Fran saying, if you go into the season with Sidney Brown, I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I'm not sure how comfortable you are with that overall. Again, if it's at 32, if it's Starks or Emmanwori, I think I can live with that. Am I going to be jumping up and down the same way that Fran Duffy is on Thursday night? Maybe not, but I do think it's a fine value just based on kind of what is happening there. Again, I feel, at least decent about a guy like Andrew Mukuba if that's kind of later in that third round area. I personally don't see like Starks is at 16 and we're going to trade up to there. We're going to, burn maybe a third and a fourth at the same time, having to move up for that. But I think I feel a little bit better about the prospect of they're going to bring someone in that is going to have like a lot of positive traits that can, be formed a little bit into a good spot.
Fran, would you rather have Malaki Starks at 32 or Kevin Winston in the third round?
Could you offer me another player to go with it?
Well, yeah, let's go Malaki Starks and Omar Norman Lott, who I know you love.
Diabolical.
But that's a reasonable third round pick. Or Walter Nolan and Kevin Winston.
Ooh. I know what Shawn would say. Because he hates Walter Nolan.
Yeah, his pads are too high. We can't coach that.
Guys, I am being asked to tell you what I saw on the film. That is what I saw. It's someone else's job to make the projection of, is Clint Hurt going to be able to beat that out of him and really able to keep him under the chute? I know EJ Smith has the firm belief that you just get him under those high school chutes and he's going to be fine. But I think it's important that the people know that these prospects aren't perfect. There's an area of concern that if they don't get cleaned up, they could just be out of the league.
I think I would go Starks and Omar Norman Lott.
Interesting.
I think.
Even though you love Nolan.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I
love Starks too.
All four of those players are good players. So.
Okay. All right. Couple quick ones on the depth safeties here.
Okay.
You're a little bit lower than consensus on Malaki Moore, which you teased.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I just worry about
From Alabama, in case you don't know.
Yep, safety from Alabama, 5-year starter, 2-time captain. I love the intangibles, everything that he's going to bring to the table from that standpoint. He's been injured through the pre-draft process, so didn't participate at the Senior Bowl. Was first team All-SEC this year, but I think when you're looking at his versatility, what he's done, he's played safety, he's played in the star, he's played a ton there. I just worry about the overall athleticism, and I didn't see anything like instinctually from a mental standpoint that to me like offsets that. And so I thought, again, kind of what we were saying with Dante Trader. I think Trader, he's the same bucket as Trader. I just liked Trader just a touch more.
Okay. Raywan Lane, the third from Navy. You haven't fully done him and written him up yet, but the Eagles brought him in for a pre-draft visit. He was a 4-year starter at Navy. You saw him at the Senior Bowl. What kind of player are we talking?
Yeah, he's a smaller player, under 5'11", compact frame. Didn't move the needle for me at the Senior Bowl at all, and then even at the Combine wasn't blown away either. So haven't done the film yet. Kept putting him off and just haven't gotten to him. But now that he's taken a visit of some sort with the Eagles, that I will almost certainly be getting to him next week.
Okay, and then do you want to guess who my guy who I think is a little bit interesting on day 3 is?
Marcus Siegel.
Marquise Siegel. He's kind of interesting.
Well, you know who my comp is?
Who?
Sidney Brown.
Really?
Yeah, Sidney Brown's my comp on Marquise Siegel.
Okay, well, I'll take that in the 6th round. An interesting player who I like the signal of guys who started. 3 years at North Dakota State, was not a starter.
Was not a starter.
Yeah. Then transfers to Kansas State, starts for 2 years and is a captain, and made some plays. I think, a floor of being a really good special teams player.
Yes.
But 4.37, you talk about the traits could potentially grow into a starter. I don't know. 6th round, I could be convinced.
Yeah, he was a backup corner at North Dakota State, and then they had a bunch of coaches leave North Dakota State and go to join Kansas State. So he followed them and became the starter. The speed's there, and it's there on film. He's just he plays out of control at times. I thought that he was better in terms of like the range. From sideline to sideline was good, but just reading things out in zone coverage I thought was lackluster. A lot of missed tackles that will show up. So, I saw more of a backup player, special teamer. But yeah, there's a lot to like there.
Sean's eyes are twitching at the prospect of having to watch a player like that.
I mean, look, I'm happy that Fran has done so much work over such a long period of time. I'm actually really glad that Fran just putting all of it out there. It is so good. I mean, personally, it was very, very helpful. So I think we're all lucky to have, Fran. And to me, it is like, it's the best draft guy. Like, it just is. I don't want to hear any debates about any other ones at this moment. It's not just because I get to talk to Fran right now.
Well, there is also a draft guide at Sumer Sports, which we need to plug. Tell everybody else, before we get into the other fun stuff, where they should be reading Shawn Syed and listening to Shawn Syed.
Yeah, our draft guide for Sumer Sports. It's fully data driven. You can go to sumersports.com at the top, just press on draft guide. All of it's free. You can click through players. We have all their data in terms of I really wanted to push for scheme usage specific stuff. So you're going to be able to click on a player and get, I think, a decent view of, well, this is how this player was used in college. This is how they were productive in college. This is maybe an issue. I think it's a really good companion to Fran's draft guide, where Fran does actually a really good job with all of the numbers. I know he has his spreadsheets, going back to the Great Depression of people's arm length and their adjusted kind of athleticism scores. But I think if you use those together, it really gives you a full picture. This is what they look like on film. This is what the issues were. This is the data to support it. So, I would support both those together.
From one depression to another. Let's talk about the super chats that we have to discuss here. A few of them. From Fresh Prince, he says, Bo, what are your thoughts about Aaron Rodgers going on the Pat McAfee show to cry about paying for a cross-country flight for a 15-minute meeting where Aaron Glenn told him they were moving on, #Team AG? I think we have the same read here, Fresh Prince. This is about as good news as you could possibly have as a Jets fan. Aaron Glenn treating a clown like a clown and being a grown-up in the room. Yeah, that's probably a good signal for the, I paid my own way across to fly across country. Give me a break. Oh, no, not enough people are paying attention to me right now. Let me go on McAfee. Ryan Madden, since Sheil has reneged on the Shawn mailbag, do you think it's appropriate to leave an open space between you and existing reserved seats or reserve next to them to maximize open space in a theater? I haven't gotten to this if this is part of a recent. Is this a recent mailbag question?
Ryan had sent an email to the Philly special mailbag. Basically, it's like in a lot of movie theaters, you're gonna have, I know you guys are supporters of the arts, but you'll have these kind of seats where it's cut off, where it's like it is paired seats. And so if you're the first person to book, like, do you book like a middle seat where it's there and you're a solo person? Like maybe someone else will come in and bother and say, oh, well, there's not enough kind of couples pair seats together. To me, like it is literally a first come first serve thing. Like, the movie Sinners is coming out tonight. Michael B. Jordan. Hopefully everyone can go see it in IMAX. And I booked my seats for that like a month and a half ago. So like if someone is gonna complain about, it's like me, my wife, and then my brother are all going together. So my brother's gonna be off in a seat where he's just taking one of two. And to me, that's just like totally fine. Like, that's the behavior that we have in a football stadium. I'm not only picking my seats based on like other people. Like it is a little bit, first come first serve there.
Do you prefer being able to reserve seats at a movie theater, or do you wish it was the old way of just you buy a ticket and show up and sit where you want?
I mean, that is madness. I've obviously had in my life had times where it is that type of situation. Then you're seeing people like you have a person with their jacket on one seat, like a cup of soda on the other seat, the popcorn on the other seat. It's like you cannot like hold 17 seats here. Like it's just, to me, like antisocial behavior. I personally prefer to have it booked ahead, but also it benefits me. That's not
that different from you booking a seat that you're going to guarantee yourself an open seat next to you.
Well,
you pay for the seat.
It does, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you pay for the seat.
Okay, so you're saying, Bo, you want to have the Wild West where it's like, I buy a ticket, like we're going to just trust these, hopefully 150 people in the theater. To me, to have like it is a fact that like this is the seat that was purchased. So if someone is sitting in my seat, like I'm actually, when this happens to me, I just move over. I'm just like, yeah, whatever, not that big of a deal to me. But like you can point to it and say like I have seat, J16 every time that I go to AMC North Park in Dallas, Texas. Like that is the seat that I go to, and I would much prefer
very specific information on how to find
much prefer. Yeah, I'm actually more of a row N guy. I actually like being a little bit further back in the IMAX, but you have to know, like it's just way better than that, as opposed to just go tragedy of the commons. Like now we're gonna like, hey, maybe I sat in a seat that like they actually had an extra person, and we're creating all sorts of issues here.
I have two questions.
Okay.
All right. First one. Do you have a go-to movie theater food, snack, anything that you eat while you're taking in a movie?
No, it would be the answer to that question. I try my best not to be eaten too much in there. I will say, AMC, we're just giving out free ads here. I know that's not what we want to do, but they'll have like the popcorn bucket where it's like at the beginning of the year you buy it, it's like $30, $35, and like every popcorn is like $11 each. So now it's like all I have to do is have 4 popcorns. If I go to the movie theaters 65 times in a year, I'm probably going to go over that between me and the people that I go with. So we're really just stealing money from AMC theaters. So if anything, it's going to be popcorn. I will say, I bring like a duffel bag, and not like a duffel bag, but like a little drawstring. And I'll bring like a decent amount of food sometimes. If it's like a movie that there's really not a lot of people, I'm not going to bring something that's like particularly smelly. But like if it's an afternoon thing, maybe you bring an oatmeal after a workout or something. Never bad time for movie theater food.
Shawn revealing himself to be 75 years old.
I have I have a friend. I'm not gonna put him on blast. Who said him and his friends would go to the movies once a week, and it would be like a competition to see like what was the craziest food they could sneak in to see what they could eat. But the second part of my question was this: I have a behavior.
Not about bringing a drink to a movie theater. For the record.
Yeah. I have a behavior that my wife thinks is insane for movies, and I've been this way as long as I can remember. If I buy if I get pretzels with cheese, okay, we get in there early. We're in there before the previews start. Previews all happen. I will sit there. I will not touch those pretzels. As soon as the final preview ends and we have like, all right, we're Nicole Kidman comes up to the screen to get us ready for the movie. That is when I open up the cup of cheese. And now I didn't buy the pretzels for before the movie. I bought the pretzels for the movie. So Meg will be done all of her popcorn. And then I will be starting my pretzels. She'll be like, oh, can I have your pretzels? I'm like, no, you got popcorn. I saved my pretzels for the movie. Where are you at on this side of the debate?
I mean, Fran, I love this about you. I think it really falls in line with your love of watching college prospects. This desire to have a delayed gratification of like, is it going to be something good? Is this pretzel going to be cold? I don't know. Is the cheese going to go undrafted? I mean, that's for someone else to decide. I personally am like, if there's popcorn in my hand, I mean, like I'm absolutely eating it. Like if I had like an allergy to popcorn, it would really, I think, be a problem for me in my future. So I'm very much like it's being eaten. I'm not like, attacking it in a way like I need to finish it right away. But I mean, Fran, we bought it for the entire theater experience. Like, I haven't signed a contract that I can only eat it when the film is running. And I would say, maybe you finish it a little bit beforehand. You may actually enjoy that. As you get to that kind of minute 45, where I know Bo will cut the movie off for the night at, maybe around minute 45. But, then you're getting that blood sugar. It's going back up. You're really prepared for that second half of the movie.
I try to lean towards you. If I buy which I mean, it is very hard for me to go to the movies and not buy popcorn.
Yeah, right.
I love popcorn.
The smell is just,
I am trying to slow play the popcorn until the movie starts.
Right.
I will have a couple bites, but I start to get defensive if people are reaching into the bucket too much before the movie starts. I agree with you. I want it for the movie.
Yeah, that's the whole purpose. If I wanted to, otherwise I'm just buying popcorn. I can go walk into Wawa and buy a bucket of popcorn and walk around that.
No, Fran, that's not true. That's not true. It's different in the theater.
But yeah. Okay, I think that's fair. A couple more super chats. Fresh Prince says, "Did you know that Quignon's birthday is July 18th. I did not know that off the top of my head, but what I did know is that this is interesting, Shawn. I know as you think about college prospects, when they come into the league, Quinyon Mitchell, despite entering the league in 2024, is actually a full year older than Keely Ringo, who entered the league in 2023. It's wild.
And look, we have the one example of Keely Ringo. I think there was another one in the preseason against Drake May where he's following a long route where, maybe that could have been completed. But we have these, small aspects of him showing a little bit. I'm really excited. I think Ringo's actually going to could be one of the most interesting players just from a storyline perspective, because he could unlock the defense in another way. He could be a liability. Like anyone could be a liability at corner just based on the season. I'm really interested in, I love seeing that storyline. Like, oh, he's younger than, I think, Zach tweeted out where I think it was about him, where he's younger than every single prospect kind of going into this draft this season as well.
He's younger than Jade Barron.
I know he is. And then finally, Chase Daniel Plainview says, will Trump sending immigrants to foreign prisons without due process affect the Eagles' activity in the International Player Pathway Program? Remains to be seen. I am curious how Jeffrey Lurie feels about the vile things that RFK Jr. Was saying about autistic people, but maybe that can be addressed another time as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, two things we have to get to. First, I have not finished the latest episode of the Philly special, but I dropped off Rachel at the doctor this morning, and then I had to go circle around for parking, so I put on the latest episode while I was looking, and I heard some disparaging things being said by Sheil and EJ about Sheil basically pulling a Howie Roseman, saying, I was called to account for something I said on a podcast. I didn't know that could be taken out of context. That's not really what I said. That's not what I meant. He says that he didn't say defensive tackle was the priority for the Eagles in the draft. He just said it was pass rush. So I do need to play this, which is from his episode.
Defensive tackle ranked first.
You said it. You said it. We reacted to it. You can't pull a Howie Roseman. You said, well, I didn't really mean that. I didn't know we weren't listening to things on the podcast. I know that nobody will remember all that stuff, but you know what? We need to have some accountability in this country, and so that was said.
Accountability does matter.
Accountability matters. Okay, now to that point. Shawn,
I knew that it was going to be addressed. I was curious because, Bo, I knew that you would have done the work and you would have bought in the example. So I was interested, in the truth. But I'm always going to defend Sheil. He's given a fancy lecture at Colorado State
it's
right
team
now.
Content.
We can't ask him too much.
It's all part of the kayfabe. We're fomenting
manufactured beef.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Shawn, I need to, from the bottom of my heart, sincerely thank you. Because when I sent you the list of prospects to watch, I said, listen, if you want to, since you're doing a favor for me, if you want, I'll watch some movies for you. And you were absolutely right to say, what, you're making me do something I hate, and I'm giving you a gift of art. And that was true. But to the thing that Fran said before about like, my ideal movie experience is I don't want to know anything about a movie before I see it. I just want to see it. You recommended 2 movies to me. Now, I know that it will hurt your ears to say that I watched these 2 movies over the course of 4 nights and broke them up. This is a thing that to myself from 15 years ago, I would have thought was insane and would have hated. But, listen, we've got the baby on the way. I've got a little bit of time to myself at the very end of the night, and I'm watching these movies, and they were delightful. The 2 movies, Shawn, Petite Maman and The Taste of Things, both French movies, which, Zach will roll his eyes at. The Taste of Things. I was curious why you recommended this one in particular, because you said for your time of life. Taste of Things was, what an enjoyable, like just a movie's movie. Like it completely transports you. And at first I was like, okay, like I think I sort of get this. I think I get where this is going, but it was fantastic. I loved it. I want to thank you for that time that was spent. It was like, it was a true gift that you gave me. Why did you recommend that one?
For me, I know you enjoy a good meal. We've been able to share one good meal, hopefully more in the future together. It like the way it depicts food is so beautiful, but the cooking process and all that. But it's not just a movie about food. For me, it was really about the different ways that you can show love to people. For Fran, it's texting about a 7th rounder at 10 p.m. And for you, maybe it's Pokemon card battles with your kids. So I just think, you don't want to forget that every single child, I'm one of 3 myself, all of them, deserve love. All of them are going to receive love in different ways. And just because, maybe it's not for one, it might be for the others. That was kind of where I was thinking with The Taste of Things.
I need to know in either of these movies, it was the phrase "ha ha ha" brought up.
When he walks in on Juliette Binoche in the shower, he was thinking that.
Got it. I needed to ask. I would be remiss if I did not ask.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. The love languages and the devotion, I thought was really, really great. Thank you for that. And then Petite Maman. Now this is one. I love that it was the premise that it was taken just at its basic level and just sort of sitting in it. Right. And I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, this is interesting. This is fun. And it's beautiful scenery and it's contemplative. But then like the last 15 minutes of that movie, hit me like a ton of bricks, as you would expect, I think. And that's probably what you were expecting. But I was a mess when that movie was over.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of movies. Yeah, there were a lot of movies that you could go where it's like our person expecting child. Like you could, there's obviously, it's never happened to me personally, but so many emotions that I have to imagine that you're going through. For me, for Petite Maman, I think giving away the premise of it is not too much spoiler. Bo, what do you think?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's basically like a person is kind of, as a young person growing up, like they're able to kind of interact with their mother as like at their same age. I don't know if it was like 9 or 10 for me, but wow. I just don't want you to lose your childlike wonder. If you have to cut off the movies halfway through just for timing, like I'm not here to judge it outwardly. If I'm judging it internally, maybe just a touch, but like, your schedule is going to be different, right? So don't lose that childlike wonder. Think back to when you were a child and, give your kids the grace that they need as they're finding themselves in this world. Cause not everyone can have a perfect record and everything like Fran Duffy and his draft evaluation. So, make sure you give those kids some grace too.
Well, yeah, and the reminder that a child's like the hugeness of a child's life, right? Which you might lose sight of. But then like the very last scene, Shawn, it's just, it lands so hard. It's so good.
Yeah, Celine Sciamma, certainly one of my favorite directors of all time. Just a great one, and I'm not sure what you appreciate.
Movie, if you're.
Yeah, it was a quick one. Both those are on streaming. Yeah, feel free. You watch it. You send a message. Maybe you remind Bo about it. Maybe he'll cry a little more.
Still had
to
split
did you watch
those
alone?
Still had to split it into 2 nights. Yeah.
I love that you guys have this conversation. Where meanwhile, Shawn texted me last night about Last of Us season 2. So we're gotta stay in our lanes.
And Bo, what's going on with you there?
That's right.
What's that?
You're not watching The Last of Us? What's going on there?
I'm not against it. I enjoyed the first season. I will probably get to it at some point, but I'm not.
I mean,
John,
you're acting like you're expecting a kid any minute.
This way, Shawn,
Is what it's like.
Don't you feel this way as a movie man that like after the first season of a TV show, they've told their story?
But that is a fascinating insight there. You know, I do think like
After
most of my
season
favorite
one, we're just
series
spinning
is
our wheels trying to spend time with the
I mean,
characters.
this is a little bit unfair. I will say like my favorite shows of all time, like Station 11 is certainly my favorite ever. That's a 1-season show.
Shawn, you know ball
like that.
I love Station 11.
That's gonna be awesome. But I will say, so after watching a few episode or two of The Last of Us, my wife and I were like, all right, well, this is awesome. Like, let's just go and pick up the games and play them. And so we played both of them. And I know Fran has been just show only. So I really wanted to see someone whose opinion I respect amongst all things. Someone what their feelings for like, hey, we're going into a new season. You're going to see some new characters. You're going to see some new things. Is it working for you? But do I have the same like unreasonable superiority for like NFL film versus college film for like movies versus TV shows? I'm trying to dial that back. That's something I'm really working on because if you gotta watch, you gotta watch what you gotta watch. We gotta meet people where they are, Bo.
That's well said. I am truly very grateful for those movie recommendations. That was a beautiful gift in my life.
I mean, this is like that really does mean a lot to me. Like I have to imagine that's how like that like good feeling of sharing something. That's what Fran feels like when he gets a text like all of these scouts and they're like, hey, I saw this 7th round prospect this way, and they're like, yeah, like you clearly know what you're watching. Like, I'm just glad I get to feel that high as well.
Well, and it's what Bo said to me before the show. He was like, "Oh, like are you gonna rib on Shawn for not liking watching draft guys?" And I was like, "It's not about that. It's about I wish I could share this with you." That's exactly what I said to him out there. Is that I wish I could share that joy that I know that you can embrace, but you got to open up your horizons.
I will say I deeply enjoyed doing this. At the end result, I did one with Sheila last week as well. So like at the end goal of it, like I like potting more with guys like you, where we get the 2 top Philadelphia sports hosts between you and Sheila, Bo, and like for who's determined number 1, that's not my job. We let the people decide that. But being able to podcast with you guys about it is it's worth the like the unsureness of like, is the 3rd Dante Trader game going to be able to be discussed?
Okay. I mean, now the problem is I want to like subscribe to your recommendation algorithm without knowing anything about the movies ahead of time. So let me know like what I can pay.
Oh, you got my number, Bo. It feels like you might have a little bit of busyness coming up.
Yeah, but I'm gonna have middle of the night wake ups. I'm gonna have something to do.
So you can watch 6 minutes of a movie at a time. We're really going.
Yeah.
We're going different routes here.
Yeah, absolutely. Idiot Sandwich with a super chat and Under the Wire says, ZB has to be sweating watching Bo crush on Shawn. ZB is safe. I can crush on Zach just as easily.
I'm gonna go ahead and like.
I mean, if I could crush on Zach real quick, just I could feel like, hey, this guy's probably gonna write another book. I think for him to be able to take that on, I'm really looking forward to September. You get another one for the shelf. Now it's like, all right, well, do I have to have like a whole Zebra shelf on my bookshelves? When you're getting to I don't know. Hopefully Jalen Hurts is able to bring home another one. Then the guy's just writing books for the rest of the time.
Indefatigable. And you know which book is going to be the best one?
The next one.
The next one. We all know that. All right. Shawn, thank you so much for spending your time with us and for doing all the homework as well. One last time, remind everybody where they can check you out.
Yeah, check me out on Twitter at Syed Schemes during the season. Certainly on the Ringers Philly Special podcast, doing film reviews with all of our good friends. Sheil Kapadia. I just, am I putting out college clips? Maybe not at the volume that Fran is, but I can't wait for that season to come back. It's going to be a really, really fun one to follow what the evolution of this Eagles offense and defense is.
We need you to get off Twitter and get on Blue Sky.
Yeah, I went to go tag you on Blue Sky.
Oh, I mean, I got nothing. I have nothing against it. Is it going well over there? I think I do have the handle. Is it a fun place over there? Can I talk about movies a little bit more there without getting dogged?
It's nobody's yelling. Well, that's not true, but
it's happy yelling.
It's a little bit easier. And you're not supporting what you would otherwise be supporting. Okay, that'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. The day has just begun for Fran. He's got the PHLY Draft Summit tonight at JD McGillicuddy's in Manayunk. Looking forward to that at 6:00. We're back with the PHLY Eagles podcast tomorrow at 2:00. I may or might not be here, but we're going to do the Owl You Know draft anyway, wherein we're going to predict the 30 players the Eagles are most likely to draft, going on the record, one of the premier, maybe the premier pre-draft game on the PHLY Eagles podcast. Shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, before we get into all the live coverage of the draft Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Looking forward to it. Fran, good luck tonight.
Thank you. I'm excited. If you're in the Philly area, come swing by. It'll be a lot of fun tonight over at JD McKillicuddy's. If not, if you're remote, if you're not here in Philly, check it out. We'll be streaming live. And
thank you once again to Shawn. Thank you for Andrew for taking charge of the show today. We will be back tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.